Is creatine safe in children and adolescents, in older people, in breastfeeding, in pregnancy, in menopause? If I have a disease, if I take medications, if I have been taking it for 3 years without stopping, if I am not training, well, this supplement, probably the most consumed in the entire world, still raises blisters in some. No matter how much evidence is available, there are those who still assume that creatine can worsen your health. Searching and searching, even where there is nothing to search for to justify their position. A new position from the International Society of Sports Nutrition, International Society of Sports Nutrition, clears up our doubts. And it is quite emphatic on this aspect, so I wanted to bring it to you, at least in summary. The report was published in early February 2025. In this video, I summarize its conclusions. So that, once and for all, you know if taking creatine in the long term is going to harm you and damage your health, or quite the opposite. Creatine is a compound naturally present in all the cells of your body and plays a fundamental role in their metabolism. You use 2 to 4 grams of creatine daily, depending on your muscle mass and activity levels. Of that amount, you synthesize half of it yourself from 3 amino acids: arginine, methionine, and glycine. That is, there is an endogenous synthesis of creatine. And the other half? You might say, well, the other half you ingest with your diet, mainly through red meat and fish if you eat them. In these conditions, a detail that I'm going to tell you about today in this video. Well, in cells, creatine changes to phosphocreatine. A high-energy phosphate is added to it and forms phosphocreatine, a compound of prime importance to always keep energy available in those cells. Periods of metabolic stress, such as during intense exercise like your CrossFit class, can be especially challenging. Ischemic insults, a stroke, a heart attack, injuries, or even some metabolic diseases. Creatine, therefore, is a kind of cellular energy insurance available when things get ugly and other energy generation mechanisms fail. Although only studied in sports, multiple clinical applications in cardiovascular, molecular, neurological, and metabolic disease are being discussed. Regarding the safety of creatine, you have to understand something that I've told you in another video. It's not a hormone like vitamin D or Drug Enforcement Administration or even melatonin. Supplements that, interestingly, have a lesser aura of danger than creatine and are still safe, meaning you can take them. Creatine is an energy substrate, something your cells use to generate energy. In this sense, it is more similar to glucose or any fatty acid than to the mentioned supplements. It's like whey protein, which is closer to being a food than a supplement. Let's delve into a highly complicated, complex, and controversial topic to ensure we fully understand each other. Creatine use in children and adolescents is a complex issue, because obviously at this stage of life we fall into the conception that supplements cannot or should not be used, never true in any situation or context, and also because we want to take much more care and be 150% sure of the effects that whatever we give to our children generates, as is obvious, normal, and reasonable, right? Logical? I am referring to the creatine molecule, regardless of whether it comes from the body, diet, or supplementation. Those 3 sources. That is, I'm not talking about the supplement. Well, creatine itself is very important during growth in children. In fact, a low dietary intake of creatine has been associated with less growth, less muscle mass, worse bone mineral density, and more body fat in children and adolescents, especially in these latter ones. Despite myths and fears, creatine has been repeatedly proven safe in this population group. Creatine supplementation is not associated, as is often said in some circles, with either eating disorders, doping pets consumption, or alterations in body image perception. However, and curiously, this analysis in more than 22,600 individuals clearly relates a low dietary intake of creatine with a higher incidence of depression, which is associated with a worse body image and eating disorders. Some more reasons to consider creatine supplementation. And here I have already moved away from children and adolescents, and I'm talking about any stage of life. They are as follows. Pay attention. If we talk in economic terms, the main dietary source of creatine, as we have said, is meat and fish, especially red meat, which can also have other problems. Gram for gram of creatine. Supplementation is much cheaper, even having risen in price in recent years than meat and fish. You just have to do the math. And obviously, we don't just eat meat or fish for the creatine, but it's a point to consider, obviously. A population group that clearly benefits from creatine supplementation are vegans and vegetarians who systematically ingest little or no creatine in the diet. And yes, the body is wise, and they have a slightly increased endogenous synthesis, but their creatine stores are still less than the omnivorous population. efforts are also being made. Look at trying to get food to be fortified with creatine. Just like cereals, they can be fortified with iron and some other vitamins. And even to position it, and this is interesting, as a conditionally essential nutrient. Since the 70s, 680 peer-reviewed clinical trials have been carried out on creatine monohydrate, the supplement with doses of up to 30 grams per day. A high dose, the usual dose, is 5 grams per day. For 14 consecutive years in populations ranging from newborns to the last decades of life, both in healthy populations and in clinical populations with diseases. This includes approximately 12,800 participants, none of whom had a serious side effect. And the mild ones usually result in a small weight gain, secondary to an increase in intracellular water. Creatine has been studied during pregnancy. This review explores the vital role of creatine in energy metabolism within the female reproductive system, the placenta and the fetus, highlighting its importance for cellular energy homeostasis. And finishing the International Society of Sports Nutrition report, it concludes by making a reflection that I find interesting. It proposes restricting the sale and consumption of creatine for children and adolescents and legislating to prevent their access, as some United States regulatory agencies are doing. While the same children and adolescents can buy energy drinks, caffeinated and ultra-processed foods of all types and colors, it makes no sense from a health standpoint. Creatine is a healthy, necessary nutrient with numerous benefits. The latter have consistently been shown to worsen health in this age group and also in all age groups. These are some hard-to-fit inconsistencies we observe in this world. To conclude, these are some of the reasons why creatine is a staple supplement, or whenever I don't forget it in my routine. And you know that you have easy access to purchase it with the Empower code at Full Gas. I'll finish by announcing that there will be changes to the channel very soon. For our long-time visitors, our beloved Blackboard has returned. What subjects would you like to see featured on it? See you in the next video. Thanks for watching, subscribing, and sharing this with others. A big hug until the next video. Keep on empowering.